Hello and welcome to another edition of the We Are Change talk show. I thank you for joining me. Firstly, I'm proud to announce that I've signed on with Liberty Movement Radio. They have been rebroadcasting my content to an American audience. This has been a successful partnership so far, and I look forward to working with them more in future. Also, I'd like to thank those that have been generous enough to make donations to the show here at We Are Change Melbourne. It's with your support that I'm able to continue. Every cent counts and we're really making progress. I have a great show for you today. I was contacted by NewsAustralia, who were eager to interview me in regards to my work, filming protests, covering the New World Order as it unfolds here in Melbourne, Australia. So let's go to that interview now. So joining me is NewsAustralia, who has a series of questions they would like to ask. Thank you for appearing on the program. How are you going there today?
Yeah, really good. I'm excited to meet you and be on your show, as well as have a video to share on my new YouTube channel. Yeah, pre-pandemic, who were you and what were you doing?
Well, I've been covering these topics for many years, working at We Are Change, whether it's medical tyranny, corruption, on all levels. So I've been very active, giving speeches, doing interviews, filming protests, and everything in my capacity to really expose this New World Order. I've seen it approaching rapidly. I was talking about this years ago with many prominent figures, and a lot of people were lulled into a false sense of security. Some people, they've seen it coming, but it's not until it hits that, it's a cruel awakening, and it's very horrifying. So, yes, I've always been around the field, and known for many years. So you can look back at some of my videos on YouTube, and it stems all the way back, covering police corruption. I've always been very active.
Yeah, and we'll talk. I've got some questions about some of the videos on your channel. And like yourself, someone who's been prepared for a while, I feel really bad for a lot of people out there that it's just getting hit with now. But what was your first major step into realizing the world isn't as you think it is?
Well, 9/11 was an awakening point for a lot of people, and I tried to explain that it was an inside job. There's certain anomalies that weren't being addressed. Many people were a little bit resistant when the information was brought forward. So what I did was, on my own initiative, I went and ordered some DVDs off eBay, and I started showing them and sharing them around to people. And after awakening several of my family members, I started, venturing down, as they say, the rabbit hole and looking at other things that weren't being addressed. Subject matter that was very important, a lot of history as well, we're simply not being told about. So when you look at that, ancient history and some of the occult rituals, I always had an interest in Freemasonry, some of the secret societies that are in our communities. So I started doing tremendous amounts of research in my own time, and it was very educational, and it was very enlightening too. And it was a learning path. And through discovering this, sharing information that I'd learned, I started broadcasting on an independent YouTube channel, covering certain matters and branching out. And then through all my years of work, I was nominated to be the chapter leader for We Are Change Melbourne, which I'm very proud to say, and it has been successful ever since, and I really haven't looked back. So it's been quite a journey.
I'll ask some questions about We Are Change in a bit, but are there any conspiracies that you just haven't been able to come on board with for any reason?
Well, it's interesting. There are some topics that are open to discussion, such as flat earth and subjects like that, which there's a lot of merit on both sides, but to fully come on board with some information, it's hard to really get to the bottom of that truth when so much is hidden. But it's always wise to keep an open mind. That's always been my motto throughout this as well.
Yeah, I find some of the space ones to be a little bit hard for my brain to agree with. But
Yeah.
when was the first time you stood up against authority?
Well, I've always realised that the policing was very corrupt. There's a lot of revenue raising going on. A lot of the tactics are very brutal. And I realised the way it was structured, they're not really designing this whole system to protect and serve. And I noticed this from early on. And having dealings with authority, I realised, they're not polite and courteous the way they're going about their job. They're instilling fear in a lot of people, and that's not the way we want society to be in. We want people to be able to travel and not worry about being stopped and hassled, interrogated over minor traffic stops where you can see a lot of people, it gets really hostile, and it's not structured to look after the public. So I noticed this, and what we've seen now, the whole reputation of the force is tarnished, isn't it? So it's gotten worse throughout the years.
Especially in Victoria.
Absolutely.
By chance, was one of those original DVDs that you handed out and gave to people the Zeitgeist movie?
I watched that one early on in the process. There was a lot. There was information from people such as Jordan Maxwell, Michael Tazarian. Those are two of the people I started watching. Some of the DVDs went for hours as well. So you'd watch them over a couple of parts. Some of it was talks at conferences and National Press Club, information like that. So it's interesting to look into, and a lot of discoveries along the way. But when it comes to some, you have to keep an open mind as well, and immense amounts of research. And if you look at history and several different cultures, there is a definite coincidence, and there's a lot going on that confirms what's happening.
Tell me about your experiences with Centrelink and MyGov and the use of those tools to collect your information and keep you under a state of control.
That's a very good question. I've actually covered this on the program as well. MyGov, Centrelink, and Work for the Dole schemes, virtually slave labour. This was a big issue in Bundaberg. We witnessed people put on cashless welfare cards. They didn't have the opportunity to go to garage sales and take advantage of bargains, and as well they were really put into a state of poverty, and then that led to the crime rates skyrocketing. So what we've seen there, we've seen so many people's lives destroyed. They weren't able to put food on their table for their children, and it drove them into the depths of despair. And they really tried to destroy people with these tactics. And we also seen unscrupulous methods being used at job providers as well. And people that had legitimate disabilities weren't being honoured. They were forced down into these labour camps, these work for the dole situations where they're sanding back wood and they're working all day on their feet. A lot of people were in pain, medical certificates not being honoured. So we've seen a lot of catastrophic results occur from this, the way it was, and people are still being broken down today because of this. They haven't been able to recover. We've also seen these robo-debts as well that have been placed on people. So they use the system as a method to control and manipulate, and some people, the amount of stress that it's put them under, you really got to feel for the families that are going through this as well.
I definitely see MyGov as a way of consenting for different organisations to share your information.
Yeah, they're doing that now, aren't they, with the health passports, MyGov. They want everything linked in and put into the control grid. They want all your information on the mainframe so you can be tracked and monitored. It's a total invasion of privacy, and we're witnessing this now, aren't we?
Absolutely. How did you feel seeing, especially Victoria, with the masks and the QR codes at the beginning being a contractive consent?
The whole masks, everyone, they're all muzzled up, and the whole morale and the vibe of shopping centres. Yes, it's a very sad scene, and people are very angry, and people feel judged and ridiculed when they're not wearing a mask, and they feel outnumbered, and it's very sad. And then the QR codes, we've seen people signing in. They have one pen that's been used, one that hasn't. They're looking for these microscopic germs that they got everyone in fear of. People sanitising. I've seen people literally lathering themselves up in this sanitizer before they go in. They're virtually bathing in the stuff, and you know, they're scared to no end. And it's mental torture and agony that's put on people. And the QR codes, people are being tracked, they're scanning in, and yeah, it's a very sad scene. And they say it's all for you. Yep.
Does the one in Victoria require two-factor authorization or anything, so it requires your phone number or anything like that?
Well, a lot of people are doing their best to try and avoid this, and what they'll attempt to do is sign in manually. So that's how come they can avoid that. The COVID safe apps, the tracking technology, trying to stay off the grid. They'll do it in a way where they'll sign in on paper, and it's come to some people going to the measures of even putting down fake names and doing whatever they can just to try and hold on to some of their freedom, hold on to some of their privacy.
Can you share the story of talking to the police and then being arrested, and then I'm pretty sure you've been locked up, and then the bail and court process?
Yes, it's a nightmare. Just walking into the city, walking around, you've obviously seen the stalking that is being used on people. I've been surrounded many times, even when I've stated my rights, stood up for my freedom. They simply disregard that. I've even quoted Supreme Court cases as well, where that has set a precedent, and they should have honoured that. But instead, they are very belligerent. You see the standover tactics. They insist, what's your identification? And when you say, I'm not obligated to produce any identification because there has been no crime, there has been no offence committed. And they just keep repeating it. Where's your ID? I need to see some ID. And it's like, there's no assumption. You have no reasonable evidence or suspicion of a crime. And then they say, where's your ID? They just will not listen. They are very ignorant. And even when you're doing everything right, you're within your personal space, you're standing your ground. No, that's when they get violent. You might have seen on numerous occasions, they've got physical with me. I've been manhandled, they start grabbing, I've had bruises all over me. I was lucky I didn't have my ribs broken, and there was no offence committed. As a member of the press, freelance media has every right to cover matters of public interest, and they don't like that because they're guilty. They're guilty of the crimes that they've been committing. They don't want to be seen on camera brutalising the public. That's why they're always anxious and trying to remove anyone with a camera, anyone documenting. They don't want that because they have something to hide. Very suspicious activity. So we see that a lot. They're paranoid about journalists. They don't want it.
I've even seen a video of you where they won't even let you into the court to represent yourself. I'm pretty sure that was one of your videos.
Yes, that's had a lot of traffic to that video recently too. And people cannot believe that. And officers coming through, and there is a language barrier. A lot of them speak broken English. English isn't their first language, so that adds to the level of frustration as well. And people refuse to sign into this safe app, and it's a public building. People have paid, taxpayers' money is paid for these courthouses. People should be able to frequent them and not be blocked. A lot of people have referred it to the Twilight Zone type situation, where you're requested to attend court, but they won't let you in. I mean, and then they call for backup as well. That's the level of insanity that it goes to, when there was no need for that. There was no one raising their voice. There was no disturbances. There was no trouble whatsoever. And then next minute they call in backup, and you can see them running in. So, and then trying to put the heavies in. And people have even quoted the Biosecurity Act as well, but they just do not honour that. And what we're seeing as well, they'll just pin anything on people. They'll trump up charges. They'll do anything, even if it won't stick. They'll do that just to remove them from the area, even put bail conditions on them. They just try and gag people. So they're getting desperate and very criminal with their tactics.
Do you think the majority of Melbourne is waking up, or there's still a lot of sheep in houses not yet out in the open?
Well, it's interesting trying to gauge those figures. I mean, when you go to a shopping centre, you do see a lot of people wearing masks, but when you look at the mainstream media and the YouTube channels that they have, there's a lot of thumbs down on there. So that shows that the public is disliking the message that they're putting through. So that shows a certain level of awakening, which is very promising. When people are resisting the propaganda, that is a very good sign. And we are seeing a lot of people attending protests, a whole sea of people, thousands of them, which is amazing and very reassuring too. We've seen the construction workers here. I covered that protest. And yeah, that was a really positive sign. A lot of people, I think, you know, they got exhausted from all the campaigning. There was a lot of miles covered, a lot of heavy-handed tactics from police, the rubber bullets, the beanbag rounds being fired, the tear gas. So a lot of people were pushed to their limits. So they've slowed down now, but no, it is very promising to see. So we just have to stay positive and just hang in there. I think more people are waking up, and that's something we have to hold on to.
Yeah, I do feel that the CFMEU second day out to the bridge and then at the shrine as well, both of those seen by the world, definitely. I kind of feel like they're the things that are probably pushing the government to make these drastic moves to extend the lockdown indefinitely with orders. How do you feel about that?
Yes, that was atrocious, wasn't it, what took place at the shrine? We've seen people being fired on at a memorial, and that's an international war crime, firing on innocent civilians, men, women, and children. So, yeah, I found it very alarming and very ruthless that they would go to that level. Yeah.
From your perspective, how do we as individuals, as well as Australians, survive these threats to our freedom moving forward?
Well, that's a very good question. Self-preservation is very important. We see a lot of people, they're prepping for these disaster days. They're buying camper vans, they're stocking up on food, non-perishable items. They're looking at heading off grid. That's one strategy. Other people are going to stay and fight. They're going to circulate petitions, attend protests, keep sharing information on social media outlets. And they're doing everything within their resources that way, which is very important. But yeah, we have to do everything in our capacity. When you see a meetup of like-minded people, get together, do flyer drops, letterbox runs. Do whatever you can in your power to stand up against this tyranny. Whatever you can do, that's all you can do really at this point. I mean, without jeopardizing too much. I mean, when it comes down to it, you do have to look after matters on the home front first and provide for your family and protect yourself. But yes, we have to do everything in our capacity to expose this corruption, because we don't have much of a choice in the matter. I mean, otherwise it's just going to take over, and then they'll have free reign of tyranny if we don't stand up to it, these globalists.
Yeah, I feel that this is, although there's sort of this this is a small period of freedom in New South Wales and Queensland, I don't think it's going to last. What do you take to a protest? Well,
usually before it started to get very dangerous with police brutality, I'd take in my rig, a Nikon camera, microphone. I'd conduct interviews out in the field. I'd talk to people about the corruption they've experienced, whether it's fines, police brutality, how they've suffered, how they've managed to cope during these times. And I'd discuss that. Now, when it's getting really violent, we're seeing a lot of threats from police. I travel with a light camera, just in case we have to run for miles as well, because sometimes that's a definite issue that we've had to encounter. We've been ran down on, fired on, so people have had to flee, and Yeah, so that's a big situation. So carrying around heavy rigs isn't wise. But yeah, I've just been travelling light and turning up. I carry my press pass, as you might have seen in videos, and I print out work permits. But you can see the police, they'll do anything to try and void these permits. They'll look for anything, whether it's a date wrong. They'll even make things up, we're seeing. So yeah, they won't even let you get a pen and sign it, even if it's missing a signature. No, they won't even allow that. You can see that they're using any tactic. They're even, getting really low and using dirty techniques on people. So you can print off, I'll continue to print off work permits. Whether they'll be honoured or not is a completely different story.
For the CFMEU one, are there any moments in that protest that you thought this is a really important moment in Australian history? I'm so glad I'm here capturing this.
Absolutely. There's been many protests, including that one as well, where I've had that feeling. A couple of times someone mentioned, hey, turn around and look at all the people. And I've looked up one of the streets and there's been thousands, a whole sea of people coming down, as I've said. So as far as the eye can see, huge crowds. And it's amazing to have that reinforcement, that backup, because there was once a time where I felt very alone speaking out about these topics. There wasn't many people doing it. So you met with resistance, always called a conspiracy theorist as well, judged and ridiculed. That helped me to develop a bit of a thick skin during a lot of those times. And what we're seeing now is a lot of vindication for people like myself that we're going out on a limb, speaking out about controversial topics and often faced with judgment and ridicule. Many Christmas gatherings denied to attend, but you have to stand in your own truth and your own power. And it's sad to say when it hits a lot of people, it's not until they're impacted financially, mentally, emotionally, and physically that they start to realize, hang on a minute, there is a new world order taking place. We are under attack and our government is the one doing it. So yeah, it's a complete vindication, reassurance. And a lot of people have stepped forward and said, Jeff, I didn't believe what you were saying years ago, but how wrong was I? You're 100% right, and sorry about that. I give you full credit now. What can I do? Yep. When's the next protest?
Yeah, I had a mate recently said to me, I should have trusted you on Bitcoin. And I'm like, I'll talk to you in 8 months about what's happening now.
Exactly. That's a very good comparison, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah.
Excellent comparison.
Yeah, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and a lot of people probably thank you as well for being there on the streets and filming that when a lot of other people are too scared to do that. Yeah. Where does that courage come from? Is it just motivation against the mainstream media, or?
Well, there's many different motivating factors. A lot of it is frustration. I'm frustrated about seeing fellow Australians suffering as well. I've seen good people arrested, thrown to the ground, dragged around. I've seen people suffering financially, losing their businesses, and I feel a lot of their pain, and it really makes me angry a lot of the time. So instead of bottling all of that up and being frustrated and perhaps even taking it out on people that don't deserve it, I'll channel that rage and anger. I'll attend a protest. I'll go and face the tyranny. I'll look at evil right in the eye and I'll cover it. I'll interview people to the best of my ability. It's very therapeutic in a way to do that. So it's a way of venting a lot of the frustration, because I'm livid. Right near me is a hub. They're injecting people. I witness it. Medical tyranny. I've seen the destruction of so many lives, and I can't just sit back idly by and allow it to take place. I mean, that would cause havoc on my emotional system and mentality. So instead of doing that, I'll get out, I'll talk to like-minded people. It's been very helpful, despite a couple of fines and heavy-handed tactics from police. It's been very much worth it. And I wouldn't change a thing, even with the court case coming up. When it comes to it, this is very important, and we're at an important part of history. And I'm glad to be a part of it, exposing the evil, exposing the corruption, saving lives and helping people. And a lot of people, it provides them hope when they can look at channels like mine, yours, you know, they can see, well, there's people out there that care. They're on the ground, they're covering these matters, and it gives other people hope and inspiration and courage. Courage is contagious. And when you show a high level of that, you see other people joining the ranks, reinforcement, and, you know, that's wonderful to see. So, yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. I've got tingles in the back of my neck at the moment because I definitely feel you, brother. Yep. The PTSD of being at protests also brings a tear to my eye. What do you want for the future of your channel?
That's a good question too. And what you just raised about the PTSD, a lot of people wake up at the middle of the night and they have nightmares of being arrested, thrown to the ground, pepper sprayed, and all the harm coming along. So yeah, there is a lot of trauma involved. Now for the channel, at the moment, the channel's doing great. The views are up, the subscribers are up. We're getting a lot of traffic coming through. People are enjoying the content. The comments coming through are wonderful, very heartwarming. That's like payment in itself too. When you see comments coming through and people are like, wow, I love this. Full credit to what you're doing. Much love. I feel what you're doing, and very courageous and very brave. Keep doing best of all you can, and continued success. And when you get the feedback and recognition, that's really wonderful to see. A lot of it from around the world too. People in different countries are focusing on what's taking place here in Melbourne, and they send their love from all around the world. So, you know, that's amazing too. I look forward when I wake up of a morning, I read all the comments, and yeah, that's really wonderful. If we can keep heading in this direction, I've managed to figure out the algorithm so I can still get content up. I can avoid different subject material to a degree, and certain code words that the algorithm picks up. So I've been pretty careful in regards to that. Sometimes I'll have to mute out a word here or there just to be reassured that it's not going to be flagged, because, you know, that is very disheartening when you do a great interview, you're really happy with it, you put it up on YouTube, and then a community guidelines strike hits. I've had speeches taken down where I've been really proud of a speech I've delivered, you know, several speeches, and it's been taken down. So, you know, that's really upsetting, but utilizing all platforms, BitChute, Rumble. But yeah, if we can keep heading in this direction, keep getting the same traffic coming through, then that's encouragement to keep going out and filming. So hopefully things keep heading in this direction, which I'm sure it will. And hopefully we can get some results too and have a break from the tyranny. And what would be good to start focusing on happier subjects and nicer topics like ancient history, Tartaria, you know, other subjects. You know, we're not having to be covering this medical tyranny to such a degree. But yeah, it's a pressing issue and we have to keep on it. But yeah, hopefully it would be nice to go back to covering a whole range, a whole variety.
I've only got one more question, but before I get to that, I'm going to double back to a question I wanted to ask in relationship to that. Now, I can't say exactly what it is, but one of your original videos had to do with needles and people that have had problems, side effects from needles. How did that video affect? Was that the video that kind of put you in this direction, on this path?
That was many years ago. Yes, that was one of the first videos I put on this channel. I attended a protest in regards to that. That was years ago, and that really woke me up just to how evil the medical tyranny is. Interviewing mothers of injured children and having them crying and really seeing the damage being done. So yeah, when I witnessed that, I knew that definitely did put me on this path and made me do even more research. And then I connected with other people in this field and exchanging notes and other interviews. And then, yeah, I could see this whole pattern emerging of this tyranny unfolding. The writing was on the wall. and it was only a matter of time before I could see the destruction take over. And unfortunately, that's what we're witnessing now. It's a mass genocide, and it's devastating to see.
Yeah. So in closing, so I want to know more about what We Are Change is, how you got involved, and I suppose what it means to you.
Well, yes, I was campaigning independently, covering protests, and I seen there was a vacancy here at We Are Change Melbourne. There was a previous chapter leader. However, he moved to New South Wales or Queensland, I believe. So it wasn't practical for him to be down here doing this work. So I took over and I put 100% in, as I still am now. And yeah, I've been going from strength to strength. Recently, in the last month or two, I've signed on with Liberty Movement Radio, who have been rebroadcasting my videos. They've been a really good support crew too. There's a group there on Facebook. Any assistance whatsoever, I rarely need any, but it's always good to know it's there. They put my videos up on their channels, websites. They broadcast it out on their radio systems. So yeah, it's really wonderful to have that. So it's being syndicated. It's going out on Instagram with BitChute. So we're targeting many different platforms, many audiences, which is very powerful. So, and I always take advantage of going on the radio, television appearances. I've been in the newspaper on the front page. So there's been a lot of publicity that's been brought forward. I'm always willing to do interviews, have discussions. And yeah, the sky's the limit when people work together. It'd be good to have more of a crew here at We Are Change Melbourne, some camera crews, sound technicians, even security teams. At the moment, it's a bit of a skeleton crew. We have some people that help here in there sometimes. Some people have come and gone throughout the years. They'll pitch in where they can. That's always helpful. But yeah, if we can grow up the team and have some numbers here working, that'd be positive. I mean, there's always room for improvement to grow bigger and better. So yeah, we just have to keep working away, try and avoid this police corruption. I've had them at my house many times, but I'm not fazed anymore by that. They turn up here, they show their papers. I've had detectives. I always film these encounters, anything that takes place. But yeah, if we can keep operating without too much trouble, hopefully things will keep going in a positive direction for the future, and we'll keep exposing corruption. But yeah, it's very scary times when we have this predator force that we've got. You see the predator logo on them. They hunt people down without masks. And we're definitely up against the elements. There's a lot of danger that we're presented with. But if we keep going, hopefully we'll be victorious.
Yeah. If I might just end with a little conspiracy there, that the Strong Cities network that Melbourne is connected to, I do fear for those other cities around the country that are now entering the next period of the flu season, that are tied with that organization. Yeah,
that's right. It's all linked in, the infrastructure. That's a very alarming threat, isn't it? When the facial recognition systems that were installed, they have heat sensors, the whole nine. So they're using technology as a weapon, and that's a big factor. You know, we've even seen the layout of the plans. People will have to scan their passport, and if they haven't had the injection, they will be denied service. We're seeing that a lot in New South Wales at the moment. One person was denied entry to JB Hi-Fi. They're not letting people into Kmart, and they're even offering up injections at Bunnings at one place. So, I mean, they're really using every opportunity to attack and control. Very scary times.
What do you I will ask. Okay, I'll ask another question. I don't know how much time you've got, but what do you think this is in preparation for? So I have the opinion that it's food shortages and a financial crisis. Do you have any similar ideas like that?
Well, it's all about this new world order, a one world government. It was all orchestrated. We've seen the UN, the plans that have been made, and we see the Luciferian initiations that are coming through into this. It's all very dark. We see the social distancing, standing 6 feet apart. It's all very ritualistic, the way it's all being done. So, yeah, it's this new world order, this control grid, the smart cities. They'll have everyone locked in. There's even been proposals we've seen. There's a working zone and a residential zone, and it's a frightening prospect, but people won't be able to travel. It'll just be work and home. And yeah, it's a very scary predicament that we're all in.
Well, what do they call that in the Hunger Games? It's called, or is it the Hunger Games? They call them jurisdictions, or?
Yes, absolutely. There's been many comparisons to that, hasn't there? I haven't really watched the Hunger Games at length, but I've seen clips here and there. But I have definitely seen a lot of people, drawing many similarities to that. So yeah, it's a frightening predicament. We need mass resistance, mass pushback to hold on to our freedoms at whatever cost. I mean, we see a lot of the airlines now, because of the mandates, a lot of the pilots don't want to fly planes anymore. And a lot of people have had dreams of being a star, whether it's in acting, music. They wanted to tour the country, perform in live music in bands, but they just don't have the opportunity anymore. We see people's dreams shattered. And now, if those that refuse to wear a mask, we've seen they've been denied the right to go and see a doctor as well. They've been walking out with tears in their eyes. So even basic services, people are being denied. And it's so upsetting. They treat you like a second-class citizen if you want to keep hold of your own freedom. And it's very alarming. And some people, they're put in a predicament where they don't want to lose their business or their job. They have to provide for their family or their wife. They have to put food on the table and a roof over their head. So they're willing to comply with the tyranny, even though they don't like it. They know it's wrong. So they become morally bankrupt. They go against their own principles just to maintain their lifestyle. So we're witnessing that now. And yeah, it's a sad set of circumstances. I'd imagine even a lot of the police force, they've even admitted to me, they don't feel good about doing this. It's not why they joined the academy. I've even questioned a couple off camera. I said, this is very shameful. And they admitted they don't feel good about doing it. They hate doing it. But, they don't see any other choice. And you can see the look in some of their eyes that they might not be on the force for much longer because they just cannot tolerate this anymore. We've seen someone slammed on the ground on the concrete at Flinders Street Station. They just snuck up behind him and just slammed him, blood everywhere. I mean, that's not honourable. That's not good policing. That's evil. That's evil.
I do wonder what the suicide rates of the police force has been over the past 2 years.
That's a good question too. I've heard a lot of them have to drink themselves to sleep of a night because they just cannot cope. So, I mean, it's shocking. They have to compromise their own moral integrity. And yeah, it's a horror story. It really is a war zone here in the city.
So there's no freedoms yet, is there, at all in Melbourne? No relinquishing.
It changes from one day to the next. It really does. But, it certainly doesn't feel free. When you walk in the city, we've seen the SWAT teams, the riot squads. People are always looking over their shoulder, groups of police in 5, they're stopping people, harassment. Where's your papers? Where's your credentials? So, yeah, it's terrifying. And then it builds up a barrier where people don't trust the police anymore. And even the young children growing up, they grow up hating the police because they can see what's happening to their parents and other people. They become frightened and there's a resentment and it becomes very negative. That's what we're seeing now.
I'm definitely one of those people who thinks that we need police within society because, I don't want to have to deal with, going to a house at 12 o'clock at night and finding some husband's got upset with his wife and is threatening with a knife. Like, not everyone wants to have to deal with that, and that's the sort of and then the next day you're at a protest, and it's such a juxtaposition, isn't it?
That's a good scenario you brought up too, because people have said, I've always really had a negative outlook towards law enforcement, but people have said to me, well, what's the alternative? How is there, can we find another system in place where we don't have to rely on this? Because, it only takes a few rotten apples to really destroy the whole reputation of the force. And that's what we're saying. And now when they're all working together, pushing this evil agenda, it makes it very difficult. A lot of people have even suggested going back to a tribal law where the communities make the decisions.
Yeah, which is what a black fella once told me is what the lawman does is he knows the law in order to keep the peace. But these police officers on the ground, they're not following laws anymore.
That's exactly right. And instead of serving and protecting the public, they just follow orders given from government, and they don't uphold the rights of the people. So, and a lot of them are confused too. They're put in this position. Some of them aren't really educated on these directives and laws, what should be enforced, what shouldn't. There's no compassion. They don't look at the person's individual personal circumstances. There's just no, there's no trust anymore for the police, and it's a horrible situation, and there's no faith that this will ever get better. And I've interviewed many people. I say, have you got any hope for the future? And they don't. So, it's very treacherous times.
If Dan Andrews by chance doesn't get to pass this immunity law, emergency powers bill that they're passing through, I don't know, do you know when that's going through?
There's a lot of breaking news at the moment. There's inquiries being made. There's a lot of corruption that is being exposed for. We know Gladys Berejiklian, she's come under fire, and now Dan is really in the spotlight at the moment. So that would be a big relief to a lot of people, some temporary reassurance if we could get rid of him. I noticed things were quite a bit better when he was gone, when he had his fall down the stairs. People could breathe easy for a while, for a little while anyway. They could at
really
least
think it was a fall down the stairs.
Well, there's so many different scenarios that have been put forward, and that was obviously some sort of cover up, wasn't it? There's such more to it than that. But people could have a chance to process for a little while, even temporarily, once he was removed. So we need this guy gone. We need to restore our freedoms, and we need it immediately before any more people take their own lives. So that's what it comes down to, yeah. So,
you go. I think I'm out of questions.
Okay. Well, so I applaud all the work you've been doing with News Australia. You've been doing this for quite a while now, haven't you?
I started 2 months ago. I started doing it 2 months ago when I saw after the protest on the 18th. I think, the big protest out the front of Parliament in Melbourne, and then there was a big protest in Sydney as well on that day, and it just made me realise that no, people are going to fight this, and I don't have to focus on self-preservation anymore. I can actually come out of my shell a little bit. But, my channel, I do a daily news wrap of all the news, and I put in stories that I think are important for people to know, and every now and again I'll spin it more towards the truth side of reality. But it's really just putting those stories in people's minds that they should be paying attention to, rather than going to mainstream media and having them give you a headline and then tell you their opinion of it.
Yeah, excellent. Best of luck for the future. It was a pleasure being interviewed by News Australia, and I look forward to speaking to you again later down the track. Well, that does it for today's show. Be sure to like, share and subscribe, because we have more exciting and educational content coming your way. And I'll catch you on the next episode, where we expose corruption one show at a time.